I'm Paul Fain. I'm your moderator for this. We only have 40 minutes, as you know. I'm not gonna read my panelists' laurels and bios. You just can get that from the screen. Is there a screen? There's a screen, yeah. But we're gonna jump right into this. It's about AI, a big topic you may have heard at the sessions here. But specifically, how to advance economic opportunity for underserved populations. And we're gonna start with Taylor Mclemore, who has a report out that gets into this topic as of last week, I believe. Yeah. And just, if you wouldn't mind giving us kind of your lay of the land, what you're watching right now.
For sure, and just to highlight, I think there's so many important ways for us to interpret the title of this, which is underserved populations means a whole host of things. So just to put a little focus on where I'm gonna chat about briefly and then hand it over to other brilliant panelists that are doing the work in the field. I'm a venture investor, so I think one of my greatest capacities is to just survey at a medium altitude what's actually going on, where is traction occurring. And so we've thought about the underserved population specifically from those people that don't have degrees. One slice of it definitely indexes higher on communities of color, lower economic groups, and definitely lower economic mobility and social mobility. Three quick themes that I'll throw out there. One, I think, is pretty obvious, but I think important to say. Things are changing faster because of AI than they ever have. And that is both risk and opportunity. So I think it's a question for us of how, as innovators, as education leaders, how do you step into that to own a piece of what the change is? And how do we make sure it's human-centric? We've had these shifts in work in the past. They haven't ever happened as fast as this one in terms of like a technological revolution. But like we have agency, and I think that's the most important thing to remember. And how we lead and how we support different parts of our society are critical. I don't think that's, that one's obvious. But the second one I'll say is that how do we grant people agency, I think is the most critical question as it relates to underserved populations. AI literacy, to me, is the foundational piece of this. Just like being able to read or to do math or have the foundational skills that unlock other skills and capabilities, there's a new form of literacy that I think we really need to invest in broadly. And that's to understand not like the technical code of AI, but how does AI influence the news? How does AI have the potential to influence my job? Not my specific job, but the fundamentals of just that AI will change parts about my life. So literacy is that kind of second point that I think whether you're an educator, an employer, in the government policy space, like we need that foundational block, and no one needs it more than our underserved communities, and especially the people without degrees. The third thing I'll throw out there is that in this discussion, I think it can be easy to lose where we're talking about AI interacting with underserved populations. Some of it is directly with user, like, hey, are low-income populations using ChatGPT as much as high-income? No, they're not. Like that's out there. There is that direct interaction layer that we should be innovating at. The other is all the systems that drive our society in terms of education, work, et cetera, that don't actually touch the end user and how AI is influencing those. A good example is a company that I've invested in called Escalate does upskilling of retail workers. They use AI for the selection of who's going to be in their upskilling programs. An example is they're partnering with CVS to upskill a bunch of cashiers into middle skill roles. They're intentionally using AI to try to find aptitude and alignment, but do it from an ethical way that is inclusive and not biased. That won't touch the end user, but we also need to think about those impacts.
Really great stuff, and I didn't know that Escalate's partnership with CVS had happened already, so. News to me on the panel. I love a lot of what you said there, particularly that we have agency here, like we're not powerlessness. There, we can do things. Also on the literacy front, I feel like I'm hearing that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, like a couple hours of work, you can make up a lot of ground. Roger, anything jump out at you from that landscape?
Yeah, and from the remarks, and thank you for the remarks. Thank you, Paul, for the question, and also thank you all for coming. I think this is a really exciting space to think about how AI, and I'm sure we've heard it a multitude of times here at the conference, but how we're thinking about the people aspect. Your remarks and also the report, thank you for that cheat sheet for preparing for this panel today, but thinking about how you're so people-centered and remembering that we're doing this work and we're thinking about using tools to impact the lives of individuals. I think that we, and the collective we, often forget about what the ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is thinking about how to get somebody to a better workplace, or getting more money for the particular job that they're doing, or into a better educational environment. Zooming out and then remembering that this is for the person, which is what I love about that report, and then all of y'all's work here on the panel. And this is why I'm excited to kind of jump in the conversation with and thinking about your all's work and about the education and workforce aspects of it.
Thanks for that. As somebody who's trying to find concrete examples of how occupations are changing now, that's hard to do. I haven't found a lot of good information. There's some data and research around customer service. We've heard a lot about software development and what's possible. So I'm really curious to hear from an education provider's perspective of how you're preparing for this moment. Dana, what is CodePath doing?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Ledyard. I'm with CodePath. We're a national nonprofit. Our mission is to reprogram higher education to create the most diverse generation of software engineers, CTOs, and founders. So we build industry-aligned computer science courses and deliver them actually to college students. So in terms of how do we define underserved, it's Black, Latino, Indigenous, as well as first-generation and low-income college students. So we know that even if for instance, BLICS students, data shows that they attain software engineering roles at less than 10% of those that graduate. So even if you make it to college, pursue CS, persist and complete your degree, we're not seeing students move into those most competitive technical roles. So that's where we focus our courses and career supports. So how we're seeing, we know that AI will transform both the tech talent market and the student learning experience. I think there's a great amount of debate and uncertainty, despite what any report will tell you. It's eliminating these jobs. No, it's creating these jobs. We are creating our next strategic plan. So we've grown 10x to reach 10,000 students in our first 5 years. Our ambition for the next 5 years is to reach 100,000 students a year by 2028. AI will be a critical part of that and enabling us to deliver a more personalized and customized student experience. So if we can understand where students are in their technical readiness journey, we can reach them with the right programs, supports, interventions along the way so that it's not the lagging indicator of did they get a technical internship, did they get a technical job, which of course at that point they're already trying to move into the workforce. So I think that's where we see the opportunity with AI is in enabling a more personalized student experience and enabling us as a nonprofit organization to be more efficient in our operations so that we're not also 10xing our staff, 10xing our budget, so that we can cut the cost in half for what it takes us to get a student to that same level of quality and outcomes. So the last thing I'll mention just by way of sort of introduction, this strategic plan, we're in the sort of final weeks and we're reading it with our board and our staff and sort of thinking about how we do this. And one of our board members left a comment on the Google Doc. So this is like real time, I'm taking notes up here, I'm reading real-time Google Docs. He says, we need to reframe this conversation to be about uncertainty. While it may eliminate some roles, there are already new jobs being created around AI as some companies are hiring prompt engineers or using AI tools in ways that create economic opportunities. We don't know the effects yet. It will be disruptive in some way, and we should help students be prepared and build the skills they will need. So I think we're taking the approach of anyone who claims to have the answer is probably BSing a little bit. Bloviating is a word I've heard. And what we come back to at CodePath is making sure our students have the best student experience, the best technical education in the world, and are technically ready for whatever roller coaster will happen in the industry that we're preparing them for.
Great stuff. Thank you. Definitely hearing quite a bit of planning amid uncertainty. Mm-hmm. Jared, I'm guessing that's something that's part of your life at Career Village as well. Can you give us a sense of where you are now, what you're preparing for?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Jared Chung. I'm executive director of careervillage.org. We're a nonprofit organization that helps people with career navigation and preparation. For 13 years, we've been doing that with the power of people. We have over 150,000 working professionals who have been giving career advice to our online learners. We've served or engaged over 7.5 million people globally in giving or getting career advice. So we've been doing career advising for a very long time. At the start of 2023, we started working in coalition with over 20 nonprofits on an AI career coach, which we started putting into testing with real learners in real classrooms back in July of 2023, which under normal conditions you say, well, we just started, but actually in the world of AI development, I feel like now all of a sudden we're a dinosaur. We've been out actually with things that are in the field we've been iterating on for a long time. And I think I want to sort of, by way of apology, I think I should acknowledge that I'm now starting day 5 of my ASU+GSV experience, and some of the filter has come off a little bit because I was at Air Show on Saturday and Sunday and Monday, and we had a booth, and we were talking to people nonstop. Two things I want to say. One is that is a tremendous appreciation to GitLab for supporting this work. I think there is a huge amount of opportunity here, but it is growing very urgent that we put AI tools in the hands of learners. CodePath is, we are, some others are. Roger will know how many people actually applied and how many organizations applied ready to begin putting AI tools in front of learners to work with GitLab, but my guess is not as many as some of us might have hoped. Because the adoption of these AI tools in enterprise is moving as quickly as they possibly can, working really, really fast to put this in front of enterprise. But we really need to be working harder as a sector to be putting these tools in front of learners, because all of our great ideas 1 year ago about how this was going to work, when we actually put it in front of learners, the amount of iteration needed was significant. And it's not that hard to get AI in front of learners. We had the first version of our AI career coach up in 10 weeks. But we spent months working on security, on safety and quality and privacy systems and all the other iteration needed. So I just really want to sort of urge us all to be extremely proactive right now about getting our learning to happen not only in rooms like this one, but really by watching beneficiaries with fingers on keyboards engaging with the kinds of tools that you think they need.
Great stuff. You know, I want to piggyback on that and bring Roger in here. You know, when I think about planning amid uncertainty, the challenge of like not leaving students behind with tools that are emerging now, you know, community colleges, that's going to be really tough work. There's a lot of students who I would assume are not getting access. And I just wonder, Roger, you know, if you could give us a sense of GitLab's take on the urgency there and the role for philanthropy potentially to help out.
Yeah, and to your point, there were a lot of applications. The differentiator, the how you all rose to, you know, thinking about a super innovative company or an organization and impacting, again, individuals' lives was you had a very clear idea of who you wanted to work with and thinking about the inequities that are currently in the system and how you want to pull us apart from that. I honestly think that, and we've seen from many other disruptions or innovations or technological advancements, that who gets left behind, and you all were very explicit in thinking about let's not do this again. Let's ensure that we're investing in rural folks and black and brown folks and folks who are in community college, unskilled or underskilled people, and thinking about how AI can be a complement to that as opposed to the tool for everybody at every point in time. So that was really special for me to read through applications and honestly see you all float to the top very quickly. We're all about economic mobility. We're all about thinking about getting folks into better career paths, reskilling, upskilling, thinking about what's the ultimate outcome for an individual. If you have a better lifetime income, you're more than likely to have a better life. You're having a stable community, stable family, and we know that the workforce and educational outcomes are very, you know, tied to that. Again, I'm very cognizant of and thinking about how we're going to be intentional about what we're designing and for whom. I think that was around your question. I think I covered maybe 30% of it. Yeah.
That's perfect. And to your point about being unfiltered, you know, you're in a safe space here today.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
So, you know, Taylor, I haven't heard too much directly of the, you know what, I've seen this tech hype movie before. I'm going to just close my ears here and just wait till it passes. But I know it's out there, and I have heard some of it directly, mostly from folks, frankly, in traditional higher ed. Why do you think that is not a good strategy? The wait-and-see strategy, as you describe it in your paper.
Yeah, first of all, I think fear is like a true driver of behavior. So like I actually empathize, right, with the parties that want to do that. And I want to highlight back to, Dana, you made a great point. Anyone who pretends they have the answers is, BS in all of us. So there are some things that we might think that will radically shift that won't. That like there will be surprises in every direction. And so there will be some wait and see people that were right. And that's going to be okay. But like I think that it is easy to predict with a high enough probability that most of the things will move. And therefore, it goes back to the point of take agency in the change. And so for things like higher education, some of them might not do much. And honestly, like could the top universities not do anything and get away with it? Probably for at least a decade, maybe a few. And I'll pick on like a Harvard or someone like that. People are still going to want to go to Harvard. But what about the other like 3,999 other higher education institutions that are at risk of our model of education being under attack? And I don't like that sound almost like I'm defending them, but I actually am not. It's people are questioning the value that's being created, the cost of education, and I think that's right. And if they don't use this moment to improve the offering, Clayton Christensen will be right and alternatives will show up, and the higher education system, I think, will shrink massively. And so the question is, do they want to come along? And so do you want to play a role in that? And I was kind of picking on higher education there, I think appropriately so, and hopefully for a better society, but the same can be true of businesses as well. If they don't embrace this, they're going to get left behind. This is just a vector of creating value in the future. So you have a choice. Create your destiny or live by what happens to you.
Go for it. Yep.
Just to piggyback on that, someone asked us this morning if we were actually seeing student demand for CodePath classes soften in that students are fearful about AI is eliminating all these jobs, and so they don't see tech or computer science as a path. So are you seeing less students interested? And I've thought about it, and again, like I think the data is happening real time, and we'll see what but all of the indicators that we are looking at are up and to the right. I mean, nationally, student enrollment in higher ed is declining, except for CS majors. So I think we've seen the highest enrollment. We have had oversubscribed classes starting last year. I think that if anything, we see the kids are all right. Like comes to mind. We had we run a technical internship program with Salesforce. Last summer, we hadn't yet embedded AI into that summer program curriculum. It will be for this summer, but we saw at the end of program demo day, we saw over half of the student projects incorporated AI elements into their final projects. So that was something where they took the baseline knowledge and the full stack web development tools and APIs and went above and beyond of their own accord because they already are using these things in their classes. They're hearing about it. And so if anything, I see students running towards this, right? Like rather than, I agree that fear can be a motivator, but in terms of what we see young people doing, I think they want to be ready. And so I think it's incumbent on all of us to like build the educational solutions that will create the pathways and support them. What if they are going to be more valuable as engineers because they will be out ahead of what's expected? I think expectations will rise for what you will do in any job, including software engineers. So I don't know, again, like uncertainty, open to debate. Maybe the enrollment numbers will all tank next year, but I see students moving towards this skill set rather than away.
Generalizing, are you seeing more anxiety about what the job on the other side will look like? I mean, I would think that that's a thing, but yeah, go for it.
So we do and did. A year ago, learners were already worrying about the implications of it. If any of you work with learners, you already know that your kids know. They already know this is coming. They're already worrying about it. So we saw that a year ago, and it's continued through. Right?
Yeah.
Folks are trying to figure out how to navigate.
I think
Please, yep.
I wonder what my job will look like. And like, I think if it's not just learners, like is everyone in this room being like, I wonder if I am learning AI fast enough to keep up with what I will need to do in 6 months. And my third grader is asking if he can use ChatGPT for his homework. So like, I think it's going to reshape all of us. And I think the point that someone made about, there's been these sort of fundamental shifts in the technology landscape, right? Shift to web, shift to mobile. I don't even know if it's a shift to AI because it's more of like it is remaking everything. And so I think if these shifts have left out the groups that have been historically excluded, I think that is the major risk and pitfall in terms of what will happen for economic and social mobility if that same dynamic happens again.
Sure. Please.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the change, I think there's, first off, I think there's tremendous opportunity in this change. There's tremendous economic opportunity that's going to accrue. I just want to make sure that in addition to it accruing to business, it accrues to individuals. So that's what we're trying to do here, because AI is, I'm not like a blind fanatic of technology. There's a lot of technologies recently that I've been a skeptic of, but I'm very excited about AI and its potential. I see it as being very, very positive. I just want to make sure the benefits accrue to us with equity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that one of the things that I think is an error as we navigate this change is to look at labor market change that's coming as a result of AI as a single one-time phase shift, the phase that we enter and that we will then exit, and that then we're all done with it. We've processed the change. That is not going to happen. We're going to have, I think we have a new normal of job recreation, reinvention. And there are two implications for that. One implication of that is that we're gonna have to, and this is gonna be very hard, and I don't feel good about it, but I think we're gonna have to figure out how to train skills, equip people with skills for the next job more quickly. Mm-hmm. CodePath does that. CodePath does that already. But I think we look at something like higher education. I mean, there was an interesting conversation the other day about the Carnegie unit and the credit hour and how we need to sort of rethink that. I think that's spot on, because if we say, okay, great, you need to get a new job, as we all now do all the time, we will catch you in 3 years after you finish your training. That job will not even be the same in 3 years. So we need to accelerate skill. That's that skill acquisition. That's one implication. And the second implication is that we need to get serious about teaching people the skill of changing jobs, which honestly is not even that hard to learn. Like, all of us have learned how to change jobs. You can learn it. But if you don't teach it, you can certainly not navigate a job change well and find yourself with 6 months or 9 months of underemployment, taking a job that you didn't want to end up with. So I think in addition to AI literacy being a core skill, which you mentioned right at the start, which is spot on, I also think job navigation is a core skill, and that's what we've been focusing on with the AI Career Coach, equipping people with the skills they need to change and navigate jobs as a lifelong skill, not as a thing you have to do just to get into the labor market, and then bon voyage, good luck with it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up the Carnegie unit. With all due respect, like, I take that move away from that seriously now, but I've been writing about that for 20 years, so it's been a while. Roger, speaking of now and career pathing and making sure that we capitalize on the opportunities for lower income folks, can you give me a sense of what you're seeing, where you see opportunities, where you see some maybe not great examples?
Yeah, we all know that there's two sides of the coin here. And thinking about, you were talking about doing homework, Dana, and I was thinking about, yes, the third grader, but also, I was doing my own research and thinking about how to advance our AI for Economic Opportunity Fund, our Green Jobs for Economic Opportunity Fund, in turning to something like ChatGPT, or turning to a model to think about how to get a little bit deeper into the particular research or research question. And then I think about, where do these answers come from? What is the body of knowledge that we're using for this particular machine to give me back my response? I was dropping in on a couple of panels and learning about data sovereignty and data accessibility, and thinking about who's training this to then get the inferences for our particular research moving forward. And that gets me to the beginning of your question, Paul, and thinking about who's training these particular models, reading articles and thinking about who is actually sifting through and seeing positive and negative content. What is that going to be long-term implications for individuals who are training these particular training these particular models, and are we valuing, again, the life of the person who's actually doing that work? The thing that gets me really excited is how to unleash the creativity and the flexibility of the individual by using an augmentation like artificial intelligence and large language models. So Jared, you're talking about the positive effects that we can have, and to me, like, soft skills are not so soft. They're actually creativity and imagination and dreaming, which a third grader can do, which all of us can do, and can be impacted or augmented by technology. I was really excited reading applications about scraping for benefits or FAFSA, accelerating that, understanding how to get a low-income tax credit. There are these very amazing models where we can empower somebody who doesn't necessarily have the networks or the time to fast track how to get into a better and more stable life. And that's what really gets me going and thinking about the possibility of artificial intelligence.
Did you see any AI applications for processing the FAFSA debacle in Washington? Because
there's always going to be a debacle, and it's like, how do we overcome that?
That's a big one. Taylor, anything you want to respond to there? I've got a question for you, but please. Yeah.
Sure. I love the direction the conversation's going, and I think sometimes we can kind of get stuck on like the technology as the center of the conversation, and I think all of us, on this panel are doing a good effort, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well, to have it be human-centered. But I also think it can be deeply optimistic when we step back and we think about, it's like most of our society systems are built for stasis and keeping people in the same place versus dynamism. And you look at our employment structures, it's like most of what we live with was built by FDR. Honestly, and so this is exciting, right? Like if you ask, there are some people that will want to have the same job or career for their entire life, but I think they're the minority. Everyone else is like, do you want to do the same thing for the rest of your life? They're like, no. And so this is our moment to lean into what makes us human. We like to learn, we like to experience new things, we like challenge, and the more that we embrace this moment that way, I think we see the upside and we embrace a mindset of empowerment and abundance versus one of scarcity and loss. And it's not that both aren't there, but we have a choice.
Love that, and I think the folks here that are embracing that potential are the ones in a few years we'll see big things. And to that end, CodePath, fascinating that you're doing strategic planning right now. Maybe better than 6 months ago. Maybe we'll see. But in terms of the upside for the organization, can you push into that a little bit?
Sure. I think the best quote I've heard about strategic planning is one of our funders said, "Your plan is wrong, you just don't know how yet." I was like, oh, great, I'm glad we just spent 6 months writing this thing. But the point is not that the plan is right. The point is that you've done all of the rigor and assumptions and set your North Star, and then how do you believe that you will get there? Which for us, the three main pillars is scale nationally in breadth and regionally in depth. So actually deeper partnerships in certain regions and with schools, in addition to the national course offerings, maintaining quality job outcomes. So ensuring that our students are moving into the most competitive technical careers, historically, salaries in the 90 to 100K range. So building economic and social mobility for our students. And really revenue sustainability. So how are we building the financial model, both philanthropic and revenue streams from companies and institutions of higher ed, where we're experimenting with our schools willing to pay us for, frankly, the technical preparation that they're not great at. And the other flip side of the revenue equation is the cost equation. So how do we 10x that student reach without an exploding budget that couldn't be paid for? And the underlying platform, our sort of the platform that underpins all of our classes. So we have an in-house engineering team, and that will enable us to build tools, whether career bots. Build our courses in a way that enable teachers to focus on what they do best. So I think the human points of the creativity, the innovation, the human connection, and automate everything that you don't want your child's teacher to be doing, right? Like, don't spend time taking attendance or grading or, what if we can enable that to happen in the background, and so that the teacher doesn't become, sort of the single critical point of failure. I think also building this culture of sort of engineering excellence and extended network of student leaders and other instructors and industry volunteers. So I think that's, it's, we call it both the high tech and high touch path to scale that will enable us to reach, a much larger number of students, but more efficiently, we believe, using AI as well as the human connection.
Thanks for indulging that. I'm sure Career Village is doing a similar calculus now. I know you've thought about what this means for the value proposition of what you provide. Can you give us the Cliff's Notes of that at this moment?
Yeah, the Cliff's Notes is that what we've always wanted, which is to teach young people or job seekers or job switchers this core skill of career adaptability and career navigation, has been hard to scale historically. We were clever in Web 2.0 era using large-scale online, volunteerism to help support it. But when I watch a learner use the AI career coach now, it's thrilling for me. I'm obviously a bit of a geek about this issue, but when I watch, it's like, this is what I'm talking about. They're getting a personalized mock interview for the very job that they are trying to do. They're getting personalized help. I mean, it's like the promise of AI, one of the big promises of AI is personalization. And we need it more in the field of career development than it's essential in the field of career development. So from a strategic standpoint, I anchor off of that. How can I get more people in front of this thing? We care very much about adoption, but we also care very much, knowing that we're an early mover, we care very much about making sure that there are safety systems, monitoring and quality assessment systems, and those are not theoretical. Those are actual systems we've been building and are using and iterating on real systems with real people who have real KPIs around safety and quality and action that they take when anything doesn't meet the standard. So a lot of our work is around that right now, and just iterating with the learner, just getting in front of real people and getting feedback from real learners.
I would love to see the student with that personalized career tutor. Taylor, you mentioned the kind of demand side of the equation. It's a big set of questions for a very brief panel, but can you give me a sense of what you're watching most closely with employers to make sure that they're dropping barriers, they're doing skills matching in ways that are using this technology?
Sure, and I'll try to be brief. I think that there's some leaders out there trying to drive this, different parts, right? Everything from how can AI not just be sort of this blind resume scanner, but how is AI enabling faster identification of skills in the hiring process, all the way through retention and thinking about like the marketplace opportunities for skills to find the right opportunities for people in mobility inside companies. I think that's really exciting. The challenge, though, is a lot of the promise of AI is massive scale and massive data, and these organizations, the companies, need to sort of crawl and walk before they're going to run. So what really excites me is I've recently chatted with some like CHROs, and they're like, we're building an internal skill-based talent marketplace, but we're doing it on an Excel spreadsheet first, which sounds like, oh boy, like how backwards, like are they the Luddite in the room or something? But what they're actually doing is they're embracing the human capital practice change, the behavior of how their organization is going to use it has to be solved before they bring in a bazooka of a solution. And so I think those are the smart parties. Those are the ones that get that you, I'll just kind of, one of my early mentors was a HR leader at Bank of America, and he said this not flattering thing, but he would say it all the time because it would stick with everyone. He'd say, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And like, we need to help and educate people before we expect them to put the tool to use. And so I think those are the ones.
That's a good soundbite. Super quick temperature taking thing here. I've heard some folks hypothesizing that the resume will be degraded immensely quickly, if not already, and who are optimistic that that might encourage businesses to spend more on a better assessment of candidates. Were you on that theory? Taylor, please.
Yeah, just quick. I think it's like a lot of talk, not a lot of action so far. But that's okay. Like, we got to start with the talk. And then we need early adopters to be validation points to pull the rest of the market through. So early, not a lot out there, but I still hold optimism.
Good stuff. Please.
I think the volume of words written and spoken about skills-based hiring like the ratio between like bloviation and actual hires based on skills is like way off. So yes, I am +1 on lots of talk, not a lot of action. I agree that that's sort of the promise and the holy grail, and I think that as you get really great, it rests on really great data on both sides of the market. So you have to have accurate data on what skills a human has, which is a really hard problem to solve. That's part of our next 5 years is building a technical readiness index, because we want to match students based on that rather than the prestige and the pedigree of what college they're at. But employers also have to have an accurate understanding of what success in a job looks like and be willing to tell you that, right? And not just be like, well, and we need a 4-year degree from such and such place. So I think the two-sided market only works if there's good data and transparency to have the marketplace work.
Sure. Jared, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a direct answer to your question, but one thing I'll just, a very brief observation, because I know time is tight. Anybody here who's ever hired knows you get a tremendous number of applications, and then you have this ridiculous exercise you have to do where you're going to go through 1,000 applications trying to find enough people that you're going to. Let's just acknowledge it's kind of a silly thing that the employer has to do. What's happened, though, is that one of the things that AI has done for early adopters is that it's put a lot of power in the hands of the job applicants. And for early adopters, job applicants are now sending out 100 times more applications than they were before. When we most recently hired for engineers, we had to spend a tremendous amount of time just screening the applications for which ones were not automatically generated by AI. And I have not had to do that for any of the other occupations yet that we've been recruiting for. Engineers are super early on this, and it's all of a sudden incredibly difficult to hire engineers, and if you're doing it a traditional way. So I think what I'll say is I do not know how this is going to shake out, but I know it's going to get unbelievably messy over the next year or two as both sides make the numbers game worse until I think it explodes and we finally say, all right, we need to get serious about skills-based hiring because this is insane. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
I like that.
Good luck with hiring, y'all. I'm with you.
Roger, you want to send us away with any last thoughts?
Well, I guess I'll stay in my job for the next 2 years, so I don't want this, disruption to happen that quickly. Just thank you. I mean, I think this is pretty amazing that we're actually having that conversation and thinking about skills-based and thinking about how to upskill folks in their current job. Hopefully, employers will take that to heart and say, I want to maintain the talent that I have or the bright star that I have and develop that person as we're going along in this journey. Because I think that is core, that's key to be able to think about a long-term trend. Realize it's really expensive and difficult to find a good person and upskill that person as we continue to go.
Well, thanks for that, and thanks to all of you. Thanks to you for coming to this. The time ran out fast on that one, but please give a hand of applause to my panelists here.